The message came on a Tuesday. At first, the scientists at the Global Communication Array in Antarctica thought it was a mistake. Radio signals from space were common, but this one was different. It was clear, structured, deliberate. It was 2087, and humanity had just received its first alien transmission. Commander Jun Kim was eating breakfast when his comm unit buzzed. He looked at the screen and saw the emergency code. Within minutes, he was in a transport headed to United Earth Defense Force headquarters. "What do we know?" Jun asked as he entered the control room. Screens lined the walls, filled with data streams and star charts. "Not much, sir," replied Officer Ta. "The signal originated from somewhere near Alpha Centauri. It's in no language we recognize." Jun nodded. "Get Dr. Park in here." Now. Dr. Hannah Park arrived 3 hours later. She was Earth's best xenolinguist, though until today, her skills had been purely theoretical. Her eyes widened as she saw the signal patterns on the main screen. She whispered, "This is really happening." "Can you make sense of it?" Jun asked. Hannah nodded slowly. "I need time, but the structure suggests a language based on mathematical principles. I can work with that." For 5 days, Hannah barely slept. She worked with the world's most powerful AI systems to decode the alien message. On the 6th day, she called an emergency meeting. The room was silent as Hannah stood before the United Earth Council. Her face was pale. "The message is from a species calling themselves the Vector," she said, "and it is not friendly. They demand Earth's immediate surrender." Murmurs filled the room. Admiral Min Song raised his hand. "Surrender? To whom? Where are they?" "They say their fleet is approaching our solar system," Hannah explained. "They've conquered 17 star systems already. They expect us to submit without a fight." "And if we don't?" asked Council President Lee. Hannah's voice was steady. "They say they will eliminate us." The room erupted in voices. Some called for immediate military preparation. Others suggested hiding or deception. A few even proposed surrender. Jun stood up. The room quieted. "What do we know about their technology? Their weapons?" "Very little," Hannah admitted. "But based on their language patterns, I believe they're highly hierarchical. They value power and dominance. They seem surprised we've developed this far." Jun turned to Admiral Song. "What are our defensive capabilities?" "We have orbital defense systems, antimatter missiles, and the lunar shield network," the Admiral replied. "But against an unknown enemy." "We need more information," Jun concluded. "Dr. Park, can we send a response?" Hannah nodded. "I've decoded enough of their language. We can send a basic message." The council debated for hours about what message to send. Some wanted to appear strong. Others suggested appearing weak to buy time. In the end, President Lee made the final decision. "Send them this," she said. "No, thank you." Hannah blinked. "Just that." "Just that," the president confirmed. 3 days later, a new message arrived from the Vector. Hannah's translation team worked quickly to decode it. "They're confused," Hannah reported. "They don't understand our response. They're asking if we comprehend that they have the power to destroy our planet." "Send this," Jun suggested. "We understand." Our answer remains the same. The next message from the Vector was shorter. Hannah didn't need much time to translate it. "They say we have 1 Earth month to reconsider," she told the council. "After that, they will enter our solar system and demonstrate their power. If we don't surrender then, they will destroy Earth." Admiral Song looked grim. "So we have 1 month to prepare for war." Jun shook his head as he looked at the star map. "No, Admiral. We have 1 month to prepare a surprise." Somewhere in the darkness of space, the Vector fleet moved closer. They had never faced a species that didn't surrender or at least try to negotiate. These humans were strange, but soon they would learn their place. Or so they thought. 1 month passed quickly, too quickly. The Vector fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly when they said they would. Earth's long-range sensors detected them near Pluto's orbit. There were 17 massive ships, each the size of a small moon. "They're here," Jum said, looking at the main screen in the command center. His face showed no fear, only focus. Admiral Song stood beside him. "Our deep space probes are sending images. Look at the size of those ships." The room fell silent as the first clear images appeared. The Vector vessels were dark and angular, covered in what looked like sharp spines. They moved in perfect formation. "They're sending a transmission," announced Officer Ta. Dr. Hannah Park was ready. She had spent the past month improving her understanding of the Vector language. She nodded to Officer Ta. "Put it through." The main screen filled with the image of an alien. It had gray-blue skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and no visible nose. When it spoke, its mouth moved in strange ways. "Humans," Hannah translated as the alien spoke. "We are the Vector. I am Grand Admiral Shrek, commander of this fleet. Your time is up. Surrender now." President Lee stepped forward. "Tell them we wish to send a representative for talks." Hannah sent the message. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "They agree," Hannah said, surprised. "They will allow 1 ship to approach." "It's a trap," Admiral Song warned. "Perhaps," replied the president, "but it gives us a chance to learn more about them." Ambassador Du-Wan Choi volunteered for the mission. He was Earth's most experienced diplomat, calm under pressure and quick thinking. A small ship was prepared, armed with only basic defensive systems to appear non-threatening. "Remember," Jun told Du-Wan before he left, "we need to know everything about their capabilities, especially their weapons." Du-Wan nodded. "I understand." The journey to the Vector fleet took 3 days. Du-Wan spent that time studying everything they knew about the aliens. When his ship finally approached the massive Vector command vessel, he felt surprisingly calm. The Vector allowed Du-Wan's ship to dock. 2 tall aliens met him at the airlock. They did not speak as they led him through dark corridors to a large room. Grand Admiral Shrek sat on a raised platform. 4 other Vectors stood nearby, their posture stiff and formal. "Human," Shrek said through a translation device, "you waste our time. We have studied your planet for centuries. We know you are primitive. Your weapons are toys to us." Du-Wan bowed slightly. "If you have studied us, you know humans value independence. We wish to understand what becoming part of your empire would mean." Shrek made a sound that might have been laughter. "It means survival. The alternative is death." "Perhaps we could discuss terms," Du-Wan suggested. "What guarantees would we have?" "Guarantees?" Shrek seemed amused. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. This is mercy. We could destroy your planet now." "With your fleet?" Du-Wan asked innocently. Shrek's upper eyes narrowed. "We have no need to use our entire fleet. We have a single weapon that can break your world apart. We call it the Sunbreaker." Du-Wan kept his expression neutral, though his heart raced. "Such power is impressive. How does this weapon work?" "Surprisingly," Shrek explained. Perhaps he thought the human too primitive to understand, or perhaps he enjoyed boasting. He described energy amplification, gravitational lensing, and matter destabilization. Du-Wan listened carefully, memorizing every detail. "To demonstrate our power," Shrek concluded, "we will use the Sunbreaker on your outermost planet in 3 days. After that, you will have one final chance to surrender." When Du-Wan returned to Earth, the War Council gathered immediately. He shared everything he had learned about the Vector and their planet-killing weapon. "They're going to destroy Pluto," Du-Wan said. As a demonstration, Jun turned to Admiral Song. "How quickly can we evacuate our research stations on Pluto?" "Already done," the Admiral replied. "But that's not our biggest problem." "No," Jun agreed, his face grave. "Our biggest problem is what happens after Pluto." President Lee looked around the table. "Options. A new voice spoke up from the back of the room. "I have one." Everyone turned to see Dr. Jin Lee, Earth's leading weapons scientist. "I've reviewed Ambassador Choi's notes," Jin said, walking to the table, "and I think we can beat them at their own game." 3 days later, all eyes on Earth were turned to the sky. Not that anyone could see Pluto with the naked eye. The tiny former planet was too far away. But everyone was watching their screens. In the command center, Jun, Hana, and the other leaders stood in tense silence. The long-range sensors were focused on Pluto and the Vector ships. "They're moving into position," reported Officer Ta. "One ship has separated from the fleet." Dr. Jin Lee watched the data flowing across her screen. She had been working nonstop since the meeting with Du Wan, analyzing everything they knew about the Sunbreaker weapon. "The separated ship is charging some kind of energy system," Jin said. "The readings are off the charts." President Lee gripped the back of a chair. "How long until?" A flash of light cut her off. On the main screen, a beam of energy shot from the Vector ship toward Pluto. When it hit, the small planet seemed to shudder. "What's happening?" Jun asked. Jin's eyes were wide as she read the data. "The weapon isn't just destroying the surface. It's breaking apart the atomic bonds. Pluto is literally coming apart at the seams." They watched in horror as Pluto began to crack. Great lines appeared across its surface. Then, in a final blinding flash, it exploded into billions of pieces. Where Pluto had been, there was now only a cloud of dust and debris. "My God," whispered Admiral Song. The room was silent for a long moment. Then the communication system beeped. "Incoming transmission from the Vector," said Officer Ta. Grand Admiral Shrek's face appeared on the screen. All 4 of his eyes seemed to gleam with satisfaction. "Humans," he said, his words translated by Hana's system, "you have witnessed the power of the Sunbreaker. This is but a small demonstration. Your planet is larger, of course. It would take longer to destroy. The suffering would be considerable." Jin was typing frantically on her tablet, still recording data. "You have 1 Earth day to surrender," Shrek continued. "After that, we will move toward your inner planets. Perhaps we will destroy your moon next. Then you will watch as your oceans boil away." The transmission ended. President Lee turned to the War Council. "Options." "We can't fight that kind of power," said one general. "We should evacuate as many people as possible to our underground shelters." "Evacuate to where?" asked another. "If they can break apart a planet, nowhere on Earth is safe." Jin stood up suddenly. "May I speak?" All eyes turned to her. "I've been analyzing the data from the Sunbreaker," she said. "It's impressive technology, but..." "But what?" Jun prompted. "But it's not as advanced as they think." Jin put her tablet on the table. It showed complex equations and diagrams. "The weapon uses principles we've already theorized. They're creating a resonance effect that destabilizes matter at the subatomic level." Admiral Song frowned. "If we understand how it works, does that help us stop it?" Jin's lips curved into a small smile. "It helps us do more than stop it. I believe we could build this. In fact, I believe we could improve it." The room fell silent. "Improve? A planet-killing weapon?" President Lee asked slowly. Jin nodded. "The Vector version is actually quite inefficient. It wastes enormous amounts of energy. A human-designed version could be smaller, more precise, and potentially more powerful." "How long would it take to build?" Jun asked. "Normally, years," Jin admitted. "But we don't have to start from scratch. We already have quantum resonators and gravitational lensing systems for our deep space communications. If I had every scientist and engineer on Earth working on this..." "How long?" Jun repeated. Jin took a deep breath. 2 weeks. Maybe less. President Lee looked around the table. "The Vector are giving us 1 day to surrender. After that, they start moving inward through our solar system. Then we need to buy time," Jun said. "Dr. Park, can you keep them talking?" Hana nodded slowly. I can try. If we negotiate terms of surrender. Do it, ordered the president. And Dr. Li. Jin straightened. Yes, Madam President. You have 2 weeks to save Earth. Get whatever you need. Deep beneath the Gobi Desert, a secret facility hummed with activity. Originally built as a doomsday shelter, it now served as the headquarters for Project Boomerang. Dr. Jin Li stood in the center of the main lab, surrounded by hundreds of scientists and engineers. They had come from every country on Earth, bringing their knowledge and skills to a single purpose: survival. The Vector think they're giving us a choice between surrender and death, Jin told them. We're going to give them a third option. On screens around the room, data from the Sunbreaker weapon flashed and scrolled. Jin had broken down the weapon's functions into 5 key systems. 5 teams now worked day and night to recreate and improve each one. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, Hannah Park sat in a communications room, speaking with the Vector. Her job was to buy time. We are preparing for surrender, she told Grand Admiral Shrek. But our world is complex. We have many nations, many leaders. Getting everyone to agree takes time. Shrek's 4 eyes blinked with impatience. Your excuses mean nothing. Prepare or die. We are preparing, Hannah insisted. But we have questions about how life under Vector rule would work. Would we keep our own laws? Our own leaders? The questions seemed to confuse Shrek. He had expected simple surrender, not negotiations. Each day, Hannah found new questions to ask, new details to discuss, and each day, the Vector fleet moved closer. 5 days after the destruction of Pluto, they reached Neptune. Earth watched in horror as the aliens destroyed the human research station orbiting the blue planet. 37 scientists died. They're sending a message, Joan told President Li, showing us they're serious. How much longer does Dr. Li need? The president asked. She won't say exactly, but the work is going faster than expected. In the underground lab, Jin barely slept. She moved from team to team, solving problems, making connections others missed. When she did sleep, it was on a cot in her office, never for more than 3 hours. On day 9, the Vector reached Uranus and destroyed another research station. 42 more lives lost. On day 11, Jin called a meeting of her top scientists. We've made a breakthrough, she told them. The Vector weapon uses brute force. It creates a massive energy wave that breaks apart everything in its path. She brought up a new diagram on the main screen. Our version is smarter. We can tune the energy wave to target specific molecular structures. We can hit a fleet of ships without harming any planets around them. One of the scientists, Dr. Kang, looked worried. But the power requirements are 1/10 of what the Vector need, Jin finished. They waste energy. We don't. By day 14, the Vector had reached Saturn. They were running out of patience with Hannah's delaying tactics. No more talk, Shrek told her. Tomorrow we destroy your gas giant planet as a final warning. Then we come for your Earth. In the command center, Jun received the news with a grim face. We're out of time. Where's Dr. Li? As if on cue, Jin walked into the room. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair messy, but her eyes were bright with a fierce energy. It's ready, she said simply. The room fell silent. You've built it? President Li asked. A working version of the Sunbreaker. Jin shook her head. No, Madam President, we've built something better. She handed the president a small data tablet. On it was a detailed schematic of a device much smaller than they had expected. We call it the Sunbreaker 2.0, Jin said, and it's ready to be installed on our defense ships. Jun studied the design. How soon can we deploy? Jin's tired face broke into a smile. The first units are already being loaded. We can launch in 6 hours. For the first time in 2 weeks, President Li smiled too. Then it's time we showed the Vector how humans respond to threats. Saturn's rings glowed in the distant sunlight as the Vector fleet moved into position. The massive ships formed a half-circle, weapons pointed toward the gas giant. "Begin the destruction sequence," ordered Grand Admiral Shrek from the command bridge of his flagship. "Let the humans watch as we remove another planet from their system." On Earth, in the UEDF command center, all eyes were on the main screen showing the Vector fleet. "Launch status?" asked President Lee. "All ships ready," Jun replied. He stood tall in his commander's uniform, face set with determination. "Strike team is in position." 5 small human ships hid in Saturn's rings, powered down to avoid detection. They were the fastest vessels in Earth's fleet, each carrying a Sunbreaker 2.0 device. Jun touched his communication device. "All captains, prepare to engage on my mark." Inside the lead ship, Captain Sun checked his systems one last time. Dr. Jin Lee sat beside him, making final adjustments to the weapon. "Will it work?" Sun asked quietly. Jin didn't look up from her work. "It has to." On the Vector flagship, an officer reported to Shrek. "Admiral, we detect movement in the planet's rings." "Show me," Shrek ordered. The screen displayed 5 small objects moving quickly from their hiding places. Shrek made a sound like laughter. "Human ships. They send toys against us." He turned to his weapons officer. "Destroy them." "Yes, Admiral," the officer replied, pressing controls on his panel. On Earth, Jun watched the Vector ships turn toward the human vessels. "They've spotted our ships," he announced. "The Vector are powering up weapons." President Lee's hands tightened on the back of her chair. "Can our ships reach firing range in time?" "They'll be close," Jun said. In space, the human ships accelerated to full speed, racing toward the Vector fleet. Energy beams from the alien vessels cut through the darkness, narrowly missing the smaller, faster Earth ships. "We're in range," Captain Sun shouted over the communication link. "Ready to fire." Jin looked up from her controls. "All ships, activate your Sunbreaker 2.0 on my mark." She took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1, mark. 5 beams of energy shot from the human ships, merging into a single powerful wave that struck the Vector fleet. But unlike the alien's weapon, this energy didn't destroy. Instead, it flowed over and through the Vector ships like water. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the lights on the alien vessels went dark. On the Vector flagship, Shrek watched in horror as his screens flickered and died. The ship's engines stopped. Backup systems failed to engage. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Report." But no one could answer. Every system on every Vector ship had stopped working. In the UEDF command center, a cheer went up as the data came in. "It worked," Jim announced. "All 17 Vector ships are dead in space. No power, no weapons, no life support failures, just as we planned." President Lee let out a long breath. "Get me Captain Sun." Sun's face appeared on the screen. Beside him, Jin was smiling. "Well done, Captain," the President said. "Dr. Lee, your weapon performed perfectly." "Thank you, Madam President," Jin replied. The targeted energy wave disabled their technology without harming the crews. "They're helpless but alive." "And now?" asked President Lee. Jun stepped forward. "Now we board their flagship and have a chat with Grand Admiral Shrek. I think he'll be surprised to learn how primitive we really are." 2 hours later, Jun led a boarding team onto the Vector flagship. The alien crew, unable to resist without their weapons, could only watch as the humans moved through the dark corridors, lighting the way with their own equipment. They found Grand Admiral Shrek on the command bridge, sitting stiffly in his chair. "Admiral Shrek," Jun said, approaching the alien leader. "I am Commander Jun Kim of Earth. I believe you and I need to talk about your surrender terms." Shrek's 4 eyes blinked in disbelief. "How? How did you do this? Our technology is superior. Our weapons were impressive." Jun finished for him. "But as it turns out, not that hard to improve upon. Grand Admiral Shrek sat in a plain metal chair in a bright white room. It was very different from the dark, shadowy command bridge of his ship. 2 human guards stood by the door, watching him carefully. The door opened, and June walked in with Dr. Hannah Park. They sat across from Shrek at a simple table. "Can you understand me?" June asked. Shrek nodded stiffly. The translation device attached to his suit still worked. "I understand your primitive language." Hannah smiled slightly. "Primitive. Yet here we are." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "What have you done to my ships?" "My crew." "Your ships are disabled, not destroyed," June explained. "Your crew is being treated well. Some are helping us understand your technology better." "Impossible," Shrek said. "Humans are too simple to understand our advanced systems." June placed a small device on the table. It projected a hologram showing the internal workings of the Sunbreaker weapon. "This is your weapon," June said. Then he pressed a button, and the image changed slightly. "And this is our version. Notice the differences." Shrek leaned forward despite himself. His eyes widened as he studied the hologram. "This cannot be. You improved it." "In days. 17 days, to be exact," Hannah said. "And yes, we did." The door opened again, and Admiral Minsong entered with President Lee. Shrek tried to stand, but found he couldn't in the higher Earth gravity. "Grand Admiral Shrek," President Lee said, "I am the leader of Earth's united government. You threatened to destroy our planet. Why?" Shrek straightened as best he could. "It is the Vector way. We conquer or destroy. We have done this for centuries. 17 star systems bow to us. And where did you get the Sunbreaker technology?" Admiral Song asked. Shrek hesitated before answering. "We adapted it." "You stole it," Hannah corrected. "From another species you conquered." "The Nyx, correct." Shrek's skin darkened slightly, perhaps the Vector equivalent of a blush. "The Nyx were weak. They did not deserve such power. And the Nyx stole it from someone else," Jun said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," Shrek admitted. "It has passed through many hands. But no one truly understood how it worked." Admiral Song observed. "You just used it without improving it, without really learning from it." Shrek's eyes narrowed. "We made it work. That was enough." Admiral Song smiled and looked at the others. "How cute," he said softly. "They're learning." "What did you say?" Shrek demanded. "I said, how cute, they're learning," Admiral Song repeated. "It's what adults sometimes say when children start to understand simple concepts." Shrek rose as much as he could, anger clear in his posture. "We are not children. We are conquerors. We have ruled the stars for not very long, it seems," President Lee interrupted. "A true advanced civilization creates. It doesn't just steal and copy." She nodded to Admiral Song, who pressed a button on his wrist device. All around Earth, on every screen in every home and public place, an image appeared. Grand Admiral Shrek's flagship, now with Earth's flag projected on its hull. President Lee's voice echoed across the planet. "People of Earth, the alien threat has been neutralized. Their weapons have been disabled by our own technology." The screens then showed Admiral Song saying those now famous words, "How cute, they're learning." Within hours, the phrase spread across Earth. People painted it on walls, printed it on shirts, shared it in messages. It became a symbol of human ingenuity and resistance. Back in the interrogation room, Shrek watched recordings of these celebrations with disbelief. "You mock us," he said. "Yet we still have ships throughout the galaxy. When they learn what has happened, they'll do what?" June asked. "Attack us with the same weapons we've already defeated. Or perhaps, Hannah suggested, they'll learn something new from us." Shrek looked confused. "What do you mean?" "We have a proposal for you and your empire," President Lee said. "One that doesn't end with more destruction." "What proposal?" Shrek asked. "Peace," she answered simply. and a chance to truly learn. 3 days after capturing Grand Admiral Shrek, Earth began questioning the other Vectar officers. June and Hannah led most of these sessions, learning more about the alien empire with each conversation. Their society is built entirely on conquest, Hannah told the Earth Security Council. Every resource, every bit of technology, every cultural advancement comes from species they've defeated. Admiral Song frowned. So they create nothing of their own. Very little, Hannah replied. They're excellent at adapting what they steal, but innovation isn't valued in their culture. Only strength and dominance matter. Jin, who had been studying the Vectar ships, added her own discoveries. Their engineering is surprisingly simple. It's like they bolted together technologies from a dozen different sources without truly understanding how they work together. President Lee looked troubled. What about the other species they conquered? Do they have any rights in the Vectar Empire? Barely, Jun said. They're treated as second-class citizens at best, slaves at worst. But here's something interesting. Several of the younger Vectar officers have expressed surprise at how we treated them after capturing them. Surprise? Asked the president. They expected to be killed, Hannah explained. In their culture, defeat means death or slavery. The fact that we're treating them with basic dignity is confusing to them. Jin cleared her throat. There's something else you should know. I've been studying the original Sunbreaker design more closely. It's not just inefficient, it's dangerous to the user. She showed them data on a screen. The Vector version creates radiation that slowly poisons the operators. I don't think they even realized this. The species that created it originally might have built in this flaw on purpose, as a trap for anyone who stole it. And our version? Admiral Song asked. Doesn't have this problem, Jin said. We fixed it without even knowing it was there. Later that day, Jun and Jin questioned a Vectar engineer named Tark. Unlike the officers, Tark seemed almost eager to talk. You truly created a better Sunbreaker in just days, he asked, his 4 eyes wide with wonder. Jin nodded. We did. That should be impossible, Tark said. The Knicks spent years reverse engineering it from the Galvani, who took it from the Helix, who. How far back does this chain go? Jun asked. Tark's upper eyes blinked. No one knows for certain. Some say the original builders created it millions of years ago. And in all that time, no one improved it. Jin asked. It was forbidden, Tark explained. Each species that held the weapon feared others might make it more powerful. They guarded it, used it, but never truly studied it. Jin looked at Jun. That explains the inefficiency and the radiation problem. Radiation problem? Tark asked, suddenly alert. Jin explained about the harmful radiation. Tark's skin paled to a light blue. The officers, many die young, he said quietly. They call it the commander's curse. But it was the weapon all along. And you didn't question this? Jun asked. Questioning is not the Vectar way, Tark replied. Then, more softly, but perhaps it should be. That evening, Hannah made an unexpected discovery while reviewing recordings of conversations with the Vectar crew. She called an emergency meeting. Many of the lower-ranking Vector don't support their empire's actions, she reported. There's discontent, especially among the younger ones and the technical specialists. Could this help us? President Lee asked. It might, Jun said thoughtfully. Grand Admiral Shrek represents the old way of thinking, but if others in their fleet see another path, we could have allies within the Vectar ranks. Admiral Song finished. Jin, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. There's something else. If the Vectar Empire is built on stolen technology they barely understand, what about the species they've conquered? Some of them might have been far more advanced than the Vector. Potential allies, Jun said, nodding. If we could reach them. President Lee looked around the table. This changes our approach. The Vectar aren't just enemies to be defeated. They're the key to something much bigger. A revolution, Hannah suggested. not just in technology, but in how these civilizations interact. And it all started with one phrase. Admiral Song said with a small smile. How cute, they're learning. 1 week after the capture of the Vector fleet, Earth received a surprising message. It came from a Vector ship far from Saturn, but it wasn't from Grand Admiral Shrek's superiors. This is Captain Suho of the Vector cruiser Dominance. The message began. We have heard what happened at Saturn. We wish to talk. The Security Council debated how to respond. It could be a trap, Admiral Song warned. Another fleet coming to attack us. Or it could be the opportunity we've been waiting for, Hannah countered. Remember what we learned about the younger Vector officers. President Lee made the decision. Tell them they can send one small ship to Earth. We'll talk. 3 days later, Captain Suho arrived. Unlike Shrek, Suho was younger, with lighter blue skin. When he saw Grand Admiral Shrek in Earth custody, he seemed more curious than angry. You haven't executed him, Suho observed. That's not our way, Jun explained. The news is spreading through the Empire, Suho told them. Some say you destroyed our fleet with dark magic. Others say you have technology beyond our understanding. Neither is true, Jin said. We simply took the time to understand how things work, rather than just using them. Suho was silent for a moment. There is unrest in the Empire. Many ships have refused orders. Some have even turned against each other. Civil war? President Lee asked. Not yet, Suho replied. But soon, perhaps. The old ways are being questioned for the first time. Jun leaned forward. And which side are you on, Captain? Suho's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. I command 7 ships. We wish to find a new path. One that doesn't lead to endless conquest and destruction. This was the opening Earth had been hoping for. Admiral Song proposed a bold plan to the Security Council. We return the captured Vector ships, he suggested, not to Grand Admiral Shrek, but to Captain Suho and others who want change. Return their weapons, a general asked, shocked. With conditions, Admiral Song continued. We offer to help them understand their own technology better, to improve it, make it safer. And in return, they help us contact the species they've conquered. The debate lasted for hours. Finally, President Lee approved the plan. The next day, they presented the offer to Suho. We will return your ships with improvements, Jun explained. We'll share our knowledge, our understanding of the technology. Why would you do this? Suho asked, suspicious. We came to destroy you. Because we believe there's a better way forward than endless war, President Lee said. We believe in learning and growing together, not conquering. And what do you want in return? Your help in reaching out to the species under Vector control, Hannah said. And your word that you'll work toward peaceful cooperation, not domination. Suho was quiet for a long time. Many will resist this change. Change is never easy, Jin agreed. But continuing on the same path leads nowhere good. Your weapons poison your own people. Your ships are inefficient. You've taken much, but understood little. How do I know I can trust you? Suho asked. Jun smiled. You don't. Trust has to be built over time. But we're willing to take the first step. 2 days later, Captain Suho sent messages to his allies throughout the Vector fleet. Word spread quickly. More ships broke away from the Empire's control. Some battles erupted between loyalists and reformers, but the reform movement grew stronger each day. When Suho left Earth, he took with him not just the promised ships, but also a team of human engineers and scientists led by Jin. Their mission was to help the Vector understand their own technology and to establish contact with other species. This is a risk, Admiral Song said as they watched the ships depart. Every great change begins with risk, President Lee replied. Do you think it will work? Jun asked Hannah as they stood side by side. I don't know, she admitted, but the message is spreading across the stars. Earth stood up to the mighty Vector and won, not through greater violence, but through greater understanding. How cute, "They're learning," Jun quoted with a smile. "Indeed," Hannah said. "And now, perhaps we all are." 5 years passed. Earth changed in ways no one could have imagined before the Vector arrived. Jun stood on the observation deck of the Unity station, a massive structure orbiting Earth. Through the large window, he watched ships coming and going. Some were human vessels, but many were not. Ships of different designs, from different worlds, moved peacefully alongside each other. "Admiral Kim," a voice called. Jun turned to see Hannah approaching. She now served as Earth's chief diplomat to the galactic community. "Dr. Park," he greeted her with a smile. "Just in time for the ceremony." "I wouldn't miss it," she replied. "The 5th anniversary of the Alliance. Hard to believe how much has changed." Together, they walked to the main hall, where representatives from 23 different species had gathered. Some looked almost human. Others were wildly different. Beings of crystal, of gas, of light. Yet all were here peacefully. President Lee stood at the center of the hall. Beside her was Captain Suho, now Leader Suho of the reformed Vector Federation. 5 years ago, President Lee began, we faced destruction. Today, we celebrate creation. The creation of a new way for our civilizations to work together. Suho stepped forward. The old Vector Empire was built on fear and conquest. We took what others created but never truly understood it. Humans showed us a better path. Dr. Jin Lee joined them on the stage. In the past 5 years, she had traveled to dozens of worlds, helping species reclaim and understand their own technologies. The Alliance has achieved more in 5 years than the Empire did in centuries, Jin said. When we share knowledge instead of stealing it, we all grow stronger. She activated a display showing their greatest achievement, the Harmony Network. It was a system of energy transfer and communication that connected all Alliance worlds, based on the same principles as the Sunbreaker, but used for creation instead of destruction. After the ceremony, Jun and Hannah stood again at the observation window. A small ship approached, one of the first joint projects between humans and the Nex, who had been among the first to join the Alliance after breaking free from Vector control. "The exploration fleet leaves tomorrow," Jun said. 10 ships, crews from 6 different species. "Looking for the original builders?" Hannah asked. Jun nodded. Jin thinks they might still exist somewhere, far beyond known space. "And if they don't? Then we'll keep building, keep learning." Jun smiled. "That's what we do best." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. Admiral Song requested their presence in the command center immediately. When they arrived, Admiral Song was studying a star map with several other officers. "We've detected a new fleet approaching Alliance space," he explained. "Not Vector, not any species we recognize." "Hostile?" Jun asked. "They destroyed one of our outer monitoring stations," Admiral Song replied grimly. "And they're not responding to communication attempts." Data flowed across the screens. The unknown fleet was large, at least 30 ships of massive size. Energy readings suggest they're armed with something similar to the Sunbreaker, a science officer reported, but more powerful. Hannah frowned. "Another species with stolen technology they don't fully understand." "Perhaps," Jun said, "or perhaps they're the ones who created it in the first place." President Lee entered the command center, followed by Suho and representatives from other Alliance worlds. "Options?" the president asked. "The Unity Defense Fleet is ready," Jun reported. "And we have the Harmony Network." Jin, who had been analyzing the data, looked up. "Their weapon design is crude, powerful, but inefficient, like the original Vector version, but less refined. So they have yet to learn what we know," Suho observed. Admiral Song smiled slightly. "How cute." President Lee nodded to the communications officer. "Open a channel to the approaching fleet." "Channel open," the officer reported. "This is President Lee of the Earth-led Alliance. Your actions are hostile, but we prefer peaceful resolution. Please respond." For a long moment, There was silence. Then a harsh voice replied in broken galactic standard. "We are the Krull Dominion. Surrender or be destroyed. We possess the ultimate weapon." Jum stepped forward. "This is Admiral Jung Kim of the Alliance Defense Fleet. We've heard that before." He glanced at his fellow leaders, whom nodded their agreement. Turning back to the screen, he delivered Earth's response. "How cute, they're learning. We'll be happy to show them how much more they can learn." Behind him, the Alliance fleet moved into position, ready to teach yet another lesson about human ingenuity.